Welcome back to the channel. Another week goes on. Another week of Premier League football and lots of talking points. Happy Halloween Day, all our listeners. Hope whatever you're doing over the week or the weekend past, and obviously tomorrow night, it's a safe and enjoyable Halloween. We've got regular Owen Kelly on the night. They go through all the weekend's big talking points with a fine tooth comb. Tell you what, some big talking points. We're going to be talking about the Manchester derby, where City absolutely obliterated, like as Gary Neville says, Man United. Where does that leave United? I mean, it sinks even lower and lower for them. Erik ten Hag, I mean, how much pressure is he under now? A lot of talk about the Glazers, but should they be looking closer to home with Ten Hag? Chelsea, everyone says they turned a corner, but they failed to score against Brentford and lose the game 2-0. A hat-trick of ones for Brentford at Stamford Bridge. Can you believe it? I mean, where does that leave Chelsea with such tough games coming up? We'll also look back at the rest of the weekend's results, including Liverpool's won at Nottingham Forest. Spurs managed to go to Selhurst Park and won. They stay top of the Premier League table. And we're also going to have a wee look at the relegation mix-up with the newly promoted teams stuck in the bottom three. We're going to be asking, are they the worst ever trio to come up in terms of quality? We'll be looking ahead to the League Cup fixtures. West Ham, Arsenal, Man United, Newcastle, Liverpool away to Bournemouth. Where could that, who's going to be the League Cup winners? What kind of draw could we look forward in the quarterfinal? We'll try and predict the outcome of them games, and we'll also look ahead to the Premier League football at the weekend briefly. Where Spurs Chelsea on the Monday Night Football is probably the pick of the games, a game which I will be at and really looking forward to. So without any further ado, let's get Owen, how have you been?
It's all been good. Liverpool playing well. Everything's rosy. As I say before we came on air, the only thing that's concerning around Liverpool at the minute is the USDS situation. So hopefully that gets solved in a good way sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would concur with that. I mean, never nice to see anyone in that situation, and it's obviously been flagged up because of Luis Diaz being a Liverpool player. So hopefully, as far as found safe and well. And let's talk about the football. A huge weekend. I mean, it probably didn't go. It's not to say anyone was shocked by the result yesterday. Obviously, Man City going to Old Trafford and winning quite comfortably. A lot of people maybe pinned their hopes to it being a derby game. United might step up, but in the end, it was probably the way most people expected to go. I mean, City won the game 3-0. I mean, and it was by no means flattered them. So I mean, were you in the camp of you expect United to turn up and make it a game, or were you firmly in the camp that City were going to steamroll them?
I said during the week I thought City were going to steamroll them, so I always expected City to go on and win. Even look at the form United are in. Even they've won against Sheffield, Copenhagen, and Burnley, and Brentford, but none of them ones were overly convincing. So if I was a United fan, I wouldn't have went into that game yesterday with a lot of optimism that they were going to win.
Well, I think a lot of them didn't. I was listening to. You only have to look at Adam was on the podcast on Friday. He says he would have took 2-0 defeat. And it kind of shows you where United are at the minute, that they didn't really have any confidence going into this game against the Man City team. We know how good Man City are, but they weren't actually firing on all cylinders. That was probably their best performance of the season. But I mean, do you look at that from a Man City perspective and say, well, that's them starting to heat up now? Or do you think a lot of it was down to how poor United were that made City look so good?
Probably a mixture of both. Like Man City, they always seem to start a season slow, but there's always one game that has them clicking in the gear, and they'll be hoping that it's that one yesterday over United, because I just thought, bar the first maybe 5 or 6 minutes, I thought they just outclassed United throughout the whole game, and I thought Bernardo Silva was the best player on the pitch.
I mean, Ten Hag's interview after the game, he said that he thought United played very well in the first half. Would you agree with that?
As I said, I think maybe for the first 5-6 minutes, but after that, it was all Man City for me.
I mean, where do you think the game changed? I mean, obviously United started quite quickly and, turned City over a couple of times with balls in behind, but never really capitalised on the half chances that they had. I mean, City get the penalty. I mean, I want to get your thoughts on that because I mean, me and you
Um,
disagreed over this.
um,
I thought it was a penalty. You didn't think it was. So I mean, when you seen it, when you heard that they were checking for a penalty, because I don't think anyone spotted it in live play. When you heard that they were checking for a penalty, and then we didn't actually see the replay on Sky until the referee was sent over to the monitor. What was your
yeah.
initial thoughts on the challenge between Højlund and Rodri?
See, for me, if you give a penalty for that, you're going to have to give a penalty 100 times in a game because it happens. It happens loads and loads and loads of times during a game. So for me, it was confusion. I thought when they stopped the game before we saw the replay, I thought there was a handball in there or something. I didn't know. I didn't think it was a challenge. The challenge that happened. So for me, it wasn't a penalty, but it's Man City. They seem to get all the dodgy decisions, as we've seen. My Kovacic should have been sent off. They had a goal against Fulham that should have been offside. So, and
Michael Oliver was involved in all three as well.
so and he was over in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago. So,
What are you trying to say?
maybe there's a bit of a conspiracy going on there. But hey,
Couple of backhanders been getting their hands out. Not, look, see, for me, this is why we were chatting about it at the time. You text me, he says you don't think it was a penalty. I actually did think it was a penalty because I know what you're saying, that we do get a lot of them incidents, but I thought it was so obvious where he held on to the player for that long. Now, there's no doubt Rodri milks it. There's no way that made him go down like that. But if you look at it, he's got his full arm around his waist, and he does hold on there for quite a bit. And it was silly because I mean I don't think Rodri was going to get to the ball anyway.
No.
But I think once I seen one replay and knew the referee was going to give the penalty, and then the end City scored that, and it was a time in the game when they were dominating. But I mean it was a leg up for them, giving them that first goal. And I mean they pressed in. They could have had a goal before half time, and Anna made a big save to deny Haaland. But I mean, at halftime, as dominant as Man City were, it was still only 1-0. Man City were 1-0 up last year at Old Trafford and lost the game 2-1. Did Ten Hag make a big mistake at halftime, emptying these midfield, taking Amrabat off and bringing Mason Mount on?
I was just going to come on to that. I was listening to Gary Neville in commentary, and he sort of alluded to the fact that he feels like the substitutions just help Man City more than they help Man United. And I was one of the boys that were saying that I was glad Liverpool didn't sign Mason Mount in the summer, and I think I've been proven right on that with Dominic Szoboszlai. But no, the substitution from Ten Hag really Man City were dominant anyway, but it really put a stamp on how dominant Man City were because I think he had McTominay as a 6, and McTominay's not a 6. He was playing Bruno on the right wing, and Bruno's not a right winger. It was just a whole mess up from Ten Hag, and if he's not careful, it will cost him his job.
I mean, Callum agrees with you on the penalty. He said that that if he give that, that's going to come time and time again, and it won't be given. So I think Callum agrees with you on that one. No, I agree. I agree with one. I think he made a mistake at half time, emptying the midfield, give Man City a lot more space, a lot more freedom. But do you think he was influenced by the crowd? Because I mean, we were watching the game on TV. My sister and Keelan was at the game. Her fella, but I mean, there was a lot of moaning and groaning, a lot of frustration in the stadium. United weren't really laying a glove on them. Do you think he was kind of forced into that? He thought he had to try and get the crowd involved. Instead of sitting off 1-0 down, and in his head, the game plan had gone because City had scored. Maybe if he was in a clearer situation where his head was a bit more clear, he might have thought, 1-0 ain't bad. If we get the last 20 minutes, we can maybe then we can open up and maybe try and get a goal. But he went very early this time. Do you think that was to try and maybe get the crowd on their side? Because in that first half, as you said, by the first 5 minutes, it was one-way traffic.
It's a strange one because Old Trafford has sort of been moaning and groaning all season, really. So it's hard to put a finger on what's going on at United. But I think Ten Hag's on a slippery slope. I think they'll probably go to Fulham at the weekend and won there. But when they play the big games, the likes of Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal, they'll get hammered. And we've seen already, Spurs have beaten them, Arsenal have beat them. It's just Ten Hag, I think, for me, I don't think he's not at the level of a United manager, in my opinion. And to let the crowd influence your decisions, you're the one that has to make the decisions. As a manager, you live and die by what you decide. And his signings haven't really paid off, and his decisions aren't really great at the minute. So, as I say, I think these next few games is going to be very interesting for Man United.
We're going to come on to them games in about 5 or 10 minutes time, but I mean, I want to focus on up to now. You know, a lot of Man United fans coming into the season were pretty positive about the club. Ten Hag had done pretty well last year in terms of where they finished in the league, finished third, got the 2 cup finals, won against Newcastle, won the cup, lost the FA Cup final admirably to Man City, you could say. They weren't expected they won that game. You know, it was 2-1, it was a tight game. And, you know, City went on, they won the treble that year, so you could maybe say that, you know, they were underdogs anyway, so maybe they shouldn't have been expected they won that. So you could say done as well as they possibly could have. But I think a lot of United fans swept a lot of the results under the carpet. I mean, they lost 7 away at Liverpool, 6-3 away at Man City. They were beat by Arsenal, beat by Villa, beat by Brentford, beat by Brighton, all away from home. The only commendable result they got away from home last season was a 2-2 draw at Spurs when Spurs really had none. When Spurs and they play for, and they were actually 2-0 up at half time in that game. So that's sort of continued into this season. But the only difference this season is they've actually been losing the games they've done. I mean, they beat Chelsea, they beat Arsenal, they beat Liverpool, they beat Man City at home last season. They've actually lost this season. They Brighton at home, they Man City at home. And then if you delve,
Spurs away as well.
They've lost the Spurs away, Arsenal away. But if you delve deeper, and they're actually losing the teams now you'd have expected to beat at home, like Palace and Galatasaray, script by against Copenhagen. So a lot of them results that were swiped under the side last year seem to be a continuing trend now. So I mean, have they moved forward under Ten Hag? I mean, because at the minute it looks like they're going backwards.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Yes, they finished third last season, and they won a trophy. But you have to take into the circumstances last season. Spurs were awful last season. Liverpool were awful last season, and just using them 2 teams as an example, look how much they've improved after one summer basically, and a new manager for Spurs. So it has a lot to do with United being worse. I agree with that, but I think Liverpool and Spurs as an example, I think them 2 teams have just gotten stronger, and United haven't kept up with them over the summer. As I say, I don't think their transfers haven't inspired me. The manager doesn't seem to know what he's doing. The Sancho situation probably hasn't helped. Obviously, you have the Anthony stuff that's going on, so it is a hard job for him. But I just think I would say they're going backwards at this moment in time.
Meets us on the chat tonight. He's saying that he believes Eric Ten Hag's doing a fantastic job.
No, I agree.
I think we're back to that situation where Liverpool fans had this thing with Ollie that they were always happy when they lost a couple of games, but they wanted them to win the next game just to keep him on the job. They don't want him losing too many where he would get sacked. And we're back in that situation now where a lot of rival fans are like, they're enjoying United struggling, but they don't want them to struggle too much that the manager gets sacked because they want this to continue.
I just, as Gary Neville said last night, we've had this situation with David Moyes, with Ten Hag, with Van Gaal, with Mourinho. It just seems to be a poison chalice at United. No matter who comes on, they always start off. They have a year that Mourinho came second in his first year, I think, or his second year, one of the 2. Ollie came second. Van Gaal won the FA Cup, but after a couple of years, it just seems to go downhill after that.
I mean, it's good that you referenced Gary Neville because that provided a lot of debate yesterday. His statement after the game, kind of a rant. Jamie Carragher was arguing with him. I think both made good points, but I just want to focus on Gary Neville at the minute because he seems to blame 90% of the problems at United on the Glazers. About the lack of facilities, the lack of renovation at the stadium, the way they're running the club, the lack of structure, no sporting director. Where do you stand on it with Ten Hag? I mean, Neville says he wouldn't be even contemplating sacking him at the minute. You seem to think he's under pressure. How much blame should he be associated with at the minute with how things are going?
I mean, the Glazers have sort of ruined the club, they say they don't spend money, but they've spent hundreds of millions, and I don't care that it's been awfully spent. They've still spent it, and but the Glazers don't pick the team. The Glazers don't do the training. The Glazers don't do post-match interviews where they say, "Oh, we'll never play like Ajax because I don't have the players." So it's sort of Ten Hag on a day-to-day basis in matches. Ten Hag has to take the blame, but the overall scheme of things, the club it's probably the worst run club in the Premier League.
Just for anyone watching, we're actually going to an extended show tonight because there's no Monday Night Football, so I thought we'd probably do a wee bit longer tonight, just because there's so much to talk about. So we will focus on these topics a wee bit more in depth. So anyone in the chat as well, there's plenty watching I can see. So feel free to put in any comments.
I love a good chat about United struggles.
Put on any comments or any questions you want to ask us, and we'll try and answer them to the best of our ability. So feel free to get involved. Owen, I feel exactly this kind of the same what you were saying. I mean, do you think that Gary Neville's hatred and his sort of distaste for the Glazers is clouding his judgment on Ten Hag at the minute? Because, I mean, like you say, the Glazers don't pick the team. The Glazers don't pick the players that United recruit. And if you look at a lot of the players that that's come on in the last under Ten Hag, they've all either played, as I said on Friday, they've either played for Ten Hag before or they've came with Dutch League experience. Most of them, if not all of them, have some sort of experience with him or they are in the Dutch League. So
Mason just played in the Dutch League.
Do you think Neville's judgment here has badly affected? Now, I've read him as a top pundit, but has his judgment been affected here?
I mean, when you love a club that much and they're struggling, like your judgment is going to be affected. And has hatred for the Glazers. It could be clouding his judgment. I think when he was saying all that last night, there was a good question put to him. Why didn't you say all this when he was a player? And they were saying, because we were winning back then, so it wasn't really much of a problem. So he's basically saying it's only a problem now because they haven't won the league in over 10 years. So it's an interesting one for Gary Neville and for all United fans. But it seems to be a divided fan base, Man United. Half of them seem to blame. Well, most of them blame the Glazers. Some of them are saying Ten Hag in. Some of them are saying Ten Hag out. So it doesn't seem to be a well-run ship on either front at the minute.
Yeah, Kieran saying he's blaming the Glazers is the joke now. And I agree because, I mean, I think Carragher said yesterday, like a joke comment. I mean, what would fixing a leak in the stadium roof due to the players on the pitch? It wouldn't change anything. No, but I get the whole fact that every club needs a structure in place. But if you look at Spurs, for example, if everyone remembers that Antonio Conte press conference just before he left, where Spurs blew a 3-1, they blew a 3-1 lead away at Southampton, and they drew 3-3, and Conte set the place on fire. He probably knew it was his last press conference before he left. He knew when he was going to go out and do that. He knew that because he wasn't prompted on that. He come out with all that stuff. He knew that it was the end and he was going to just leave as much turmoil forever. So you look at that, Ange Postecoglou comes in. A lot of fans weren't, not every Spurs fan was convinced that he was the right man, but he comes on the well, I says that he needs time. I don't think it will go this well this quickly, but I thought he would be the right man in terms of he would play the right way and the fans would get behind him. But obviously what's happened has completely surprised everyone, and we'll come on the Spurs that are on the show. But he comes on the Spurs after all this Conte trouble. Mourinho's been there as well, because there's been Spurs have been falling off a cliff for 4 years, playing awful football. They've just lost their greatest Premier League player, if not their greatest ever player, in Harry Kane. People said that this is going to be a disaster for Spurs. The fans were protesting against Levy. Even up to the first home game this season, Spurs fans were protesting at the stadium about Yannick and Daniel Levy. Exactly. People saying about a lack of investment. Paratici's banned. The sporting director gets banned, so they have to try and replace him. Joe Lewis out in America gets sanctioned. He could be going to prison. So he doesn't walk into a stable environment at Spurs. But within a short space of time, Spurs have turned it around. They're playing, obviously, no one expects this. Probably even the most deluded Spurs fans don't expect Spurs to continue winning every week.
You include yourself in that?
Of course. But they've got an identity. We know what Spurs are going to try and do. Even when they went away to Arsenal, they played with no fear. They tried to play from the back, almost lost a goal doing it with Madison. Jesus should score. But I think even if Jesus did score, Spurs would have still continued to try and play it, because that's the bravery that Ange wants. We see United in these big away games. They're scared to play. Even yesterday, they were scared to go and play. And this is a manager that's come on He's been there 15, 16 months. He's got all the players that he's wanted. I mean, so all the evidence points to, take the Glazers out for a second, that this man is not taking Man United forward. He's not doing what he was brought in to do. But yet, one of their biggest, supporters seems to lie the blame elsewhere. So, how do you think now a lot of United fans view this? Because your cousin Diane, I was commenting on his Twitter yesterday. First time I've seen him, he was criticising Ten Hag and saying that maybe it is time for a change. I've seen a lot of United fans say that, yesterday was the straw that broke the camel's back. So, do you expect a lot more United fans to shift now towards Ten Hag and off the Glazers?
I honestly don't, because there's that much vitriol towards the Glazers, there's that much hate towards the Glazers. They seem to be blinded by whoever the manager is. It always seems to go back to the Glazers. Like you always see on social media after Man United lose, it's get the Norwich scarves out again. So I think and even if Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes on, he's only getting 25%, isn't it? I think it's 25%.
Yep.
So the Glazers are still going to be there. They're still going to have decisions in the club. So for me, I would be surprised if Ten Hag lasts the season. That's for me. But United's such a poison chalice. It's just a hard job for anyone they go on. Just as you were talking about, Spurs' structure under Ange. Like if you think about Liverpool before Klopp came on, we were a mess as well.
Yep.
And then as soon as Klopp comes on, then the whole culture of the club's just changed.
The right manager can take a lot of flack off owners and unite the fan base in a different way, and results and style of play, and can cover up a lot of that. So, and I think,
for example, I don't like Liverpool's owners, but we're doing well at the minute, so there's no noise under it. But I still, if the owners left tomorrow, I'd still be buzzing.
I mean, it has 5 defeats in 10 games, 5 defeats in 10 Premier League games. They've won the other 5. Only 15 points out of 30. It's their worst Premier League start since 86-87 in terms of defeats.
I seen a thing on Facebook yesterday that they've lost more games at Old Trafford since Sir Alex Ferguson left than he did his whole entire time there.
34 games. I think it's actually. I think they've leveled it now. Maybe it was a 34-34.
Yeah,
so like that anyway. I mean, Neville, as we said, that seems to think that sacking Ten Hag would be the wrong move because it would be rinse and repeat. But ultimately, results will dictate. I mean,
and who's to say the new owner won't come in and want the new manager anyway?
And these 5 defeats, as it says in the league, have come to Brighton at home, Palace at home, Spurs away, Arsenal away, and City at home. Fair enough, you could say City, Arsenal, and Spurs are acceptable defeats, but I think it's the manner they lost them games. They were second best on all of them and well beat. And it was the style of play they adopted. It was very much counter-attack.
Even the manner they're winning games wasn't convincing. They should have lost. They should have lost to Brentford. They should have lost to Wolves, and they probably should have got a point against Sheffield.
So you can't really say any of the ones they've had have been convincing. So, I mean, do you expect it to get any better in the next? I mean, we're going to come on to their fixtures and on it, but just before we do, I mean, do you expect it to improve under Ten Hag, or do you very much feel that the writing's on the wall?
For me, I would say the writing's on the wall. As I've said, I can't see him lasting the season.
I mean, a lot of debate yesterday after the game about Bruno Fernandes. I mean, before we come on to him,
I put up a post on Facebook about him.
Does this Man United squad lack leaders? Because if there was leaders on there, there's an argument to say Fernandes wouldn't be the captain in the first place. So, I mean, if Bruno Fernandes has to be replaced, who are the candidates? They take the armband, because there seems to be a softness about this United side.
For me, based on experience-wise, it would probably be Casemiro. But
then he's not the most disciplined leader. He's been sent off numerous times.
And then there's rumours about him not being happy there at the minute. And so, as I say, like, no matter what you do, United, even if they play well, there's always a bad result around the corner. There's always bad publicity around the corner. So it's a struggle for him. And if we're going on the Bruno Fernandes, I just think, as I put up yesterday, if things don't go his way, he just tries to snap people. Like, he tried to go for John Stones yesterday and ended up hurting himself.
I mean, I don't think he can strip Bruno with the captaincy for one main reason why. He's already stripped Maguire, right? But if I don't think Fernandes is the type of character that's going to take that well. One.
No,
And I
you'll have
think he's
to.
already, you can see in that dressing room, I don't think all the players are playing for him. I think some are, some ain't. I think if you strip Bruno, you lose him. I don't see, there's argument that he might be one of them anyway that's not playing for him. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you do take that captaincy off him, you completely lose him. I don't see him being the type of player that's going to take that well. And I
It
mean, I
seems to
think then he
be.
might bring even more players with him. And then
Yeah.
he could even be in a situation where there's more players against him than not. So I don't think he can do it. And two, the second reason is I'm not sure who he could give it to.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about it. What's your opinion on it?
In a way, I agree, but it seems to be Ten Hag has his favourites anyway. Because Rashford is having a stinker of a season, but he doesn't seem to get dropped or taken off. And you seen yesterday when they took off Hodgland, there was a chorus of boos when they took him off. So they're not happy with his in-game management. Rashford to me just doesn't look interested in what he's doing at the minute.
I mean, it seems like we've talked about this for a few times now. I think you were last on the podcast about 2 weeks ago, and I said to you, I don't think Ten Hag will see Christmas. I actually don't think he'll see middle of December. I don't see this going on much longer. I don't think the players are playing for him. I really don't, and I think, well, not all of them, but I think the more it goes on, the less they're going to more and more will turn.
What happens if he loses to Newcastle in the cup and goes and loses to Fulham on Saturday?
Well, this is it. We're going to analyze these games coming up now next. But I mean, let's just say there is a glimmer of hope for him. How does he turn it around? I mean, what can he do to change? Because it doesn't look like a style of plays there at the moment. The identity, I'm not sure. Every pundit, every fan is asking questions of what way we're going to play. They struggle to break down the teams they should beat, and then when they go away from home or even at home against the top sides, it's very much sit back and counter attack. So I mean, what can he do to try and change this sliding ship at the moment?
I don't want to make excuses for them because obviously I don't care about United. I'm enjoying their downfall. It's funny to me, but like they do have a bit of an injury problem at the minute. They have no Martinez, they have no Shaw, they have no Casemiro. They've the goalkeeper's not pulling up any trees. He's made a couple of great saves yesterday and a penalty save against Copenhagen, but it's hard to see where they turn it around. Like even say they do go and get a result now against Newcastle and Fulham in the league, then the next week then they'll go and get battered by Burnley or something. So like there always seems to be a bad result around the corner.
Where I think is going to be unfortunate is I think with the standard that the top teams are setting, they're already 8 points behind Liverpool in fourth. I don't think any team should rely on fifth place getting you in the Champions League. One, because United are up against it to get out of their group. People are saying about in 9 of the last 10 seasons, if this rule was in, fifth would have got you Champions League. But it's on a yearly basis. So the fifth place will only be if the teams do well in the Champions League this year. United are very much up against it. Away to Copenhagen or away to Galatasaray are not easy games when you're struggling.
And even if they won them, they're not guaranteed to go through.
They're not guaranteed. Newcastle, now you're up against it after that defeat because they've only got one more home game left, 2 away games, and that's a very tight group. Away from home, Newcastle are nowhere near as strong as they are at home.
You're relying on Arsenal and Man City, really, aren't you?
You're relying on Arsenal and Man City. They go far now. And if only 2 teams make it out the last 16, a freak draw could have one of them teams out, and then you're relying on one team to get to the final, which is not guaranteed. Well, exactly. They could meet each other in the quarterfinal, knock one, and exactly. So, and if you look at Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, I think these teams have got players like Kane and Bellingham at the minute that are going to make it very tough for their opposition. These two are the most done for players in Europe at the moment.
It's a sore subject. I don't want to talk about Bellingham.
But then, as much as I think Bayern Munich and Real Madrid they aren't the finished articles. They've got 2 players there at the moment that are making a massive difference. So if they continue that'll make it very difficult for whoever they play. So I don't think any club should rely on that fifth place guaranteeing you a place in the Champions League. So if we're looking at it with 8 points behind Liverpool, there's only so many more weeks this can go on. If it gets to 12, 13, 14 points, I think it's already too late. So I think that if they're going to make a decision, it's got to be it's going to be minimum during this international break. I think we're going to look at the fixtures now, but I mean, do you think he's on borrowed time now? I mean, despite, there's not a lot of noise that he will be sacked, but do you think if results didn't turn around in the next couple of weeks during the international break, he would be under huge pressure?
I think even so, I'm going to say just say they lose to Newcastle in the cup and then draw with Fulham. Say I think during the international break there has to be a decision made because he's not getting a tune out of the players. And as you said, there's probably players in the dressing room who want them in. There's players in the dressing room who want them out, and so and that's not good for a stable club who wants to succeed. And as I said to you earlier on the week, last week, sorry, I can't see anyone breaking into the top four who's not in the top four already this season. I think the way the top four is now, I think it's going to be, I don't know what order, but I think the four teams that are on it will be the four teams that finish in it.
I mean, they're 8 points behind Liverpool, and their goal difference is about 20 goals shy of Liverpool, so it's nearly 9 points because you don't see that being made up anytime soon. So they're near enough 9 points behind fourth. And as you say, Liverpool or Villa's only a point behind, and they look strong as well. So there's no guarantee even if fifth gets you in, they would catch Villa. So I mean, let's look at these next 6 Premier League games. As you say, they've got Newcastle in the cup on Wednesday night. They've got Copenhagen and Galatasaray in the way in the Champions League in between these games as well. And Bayern Munich at home, which in the end, that if it came down to the Bayern Munich game, that could be the best game for them because if they get positive results against Copenhagen and Galatasaray, Bayern Munich's going to already have topped the group by that stage, so that's going to be a meaningless game for them. But I mean, we'll come on to that. But I want to focus on Premier League games because I want to try and get a shape for the table. And what I want to try and do is I want you to predict these results for me. I mean, let's just go off the fact that he will be here. I mean, how many they've got Fulham and Luton before the international break, and then them 4 are after. But let's just focus on Fulham and Luton. Do you see them getting 6 points out of them too?
I do. I do see them getting 6 points.
I think that's the only way he can keep his job.
Yeah.
I think the Newcastle game is tough. I think if they went out, I think he would have to win them 2 games. I don't think I think at the minute the League Cup will be the least of their worries. I think even if he loses that'll not come under the thinking. I think that's very much third. I think they're more focused on getting out of the Champions League group and trying to work our way up the table. But I mean, they would have Fulham away and Luton at home. And obviously the Copenhagen games on there as well, away from home and between them games. But I mean, if he gets through that, then we've got Everton away, Newcastle away, Chelsea home, Bournemouth home. How do you feel about them 4 games?
To be honest, I think Everton could get a result. I think Everton could get a point. Newcastle away, I think they'll lose. Chelsea at home, I think they'll just about squeak it. And Bournemouth at home, I think they'll just about squeak it.
He needs to start getting points on the board. So you expect Ten Hag, if he was to get them results, he'll still be here.
Yeah, but if he doesn't, I think if he doesn't get at least, I'd say at least 9, I'd be worried.
Let's come on to talk. I mean, before we actually come on about Man City, let's just say they don't beat Fulham. Let's say they lose to Fulham and they draw by Luton. I think that will be the end, but. The other thing that might save him is there's apparently a lack of options out there. Who do you think United should be looking at? I mean, I was listening to Talk Sport before he come on air, and Andy Goldstein's now changed his tune. He was back in Ten Hag, but he's now saying he would look to change, and he says he would go after Unai Emery. I mean, whether they could get him or not, but this is Man United Football Club. Should that come under the thinking? Because I mean, they really should be trying to get whoever they can get. I mean. If United come on for you, it's a big opportunity. So will that come under the thinking of who's available, or do you think United will look at it? We're Man United, we can get anybody we want.
It has to be who's available. Like you're Man United by name, but Aston Villa are a better fit for you at the minute. And we've seen with Emery when he went to Arsenal, it didn't work out for him. So if they were to go to Emery, it's Man United. But if I was him, I would just stay at Villa because Villa seem to be on the up and United are just on the downward.
Could you see Antonio Conte coming on there, maybe on a short-term basis, maybe the end of the season? They maybe try and get them up the table because if you remember, he come on at Spurs during that first season. Funny enough, when Conte came on, Spurs had played 10 Premier League games, had won 5, lost 5, 15 points, and he got them into the top 4. Now, albeit, I think circumstances were different. That season that we're talking about was the second time City popped Liverpool by a point. So them 2 teams were well out of sight, whereas 3rd and 4th was kind of open. At the minute, it looks like we've got 4 strong teams. So, I mean, it's not to say that the lightning would strike twice, but do you think Conte would be the best available out there in terms of maybe uniting the dressing room, getting them organised, and maybe trying to get them, they wouldn't be playing great football, but I mean, it's not to say they're playing great football now anyway.
It's I think Conte is the worst thing you could do, because if
you only appoint them on a short term cut and be the end of the season.
I know, but did Spurs not do that? Then he did well. Then he got a bigger contract. And
I think Spurs gave him an 18-month contract instead of maybe giving him 6.
To be honest, I don't think Conte will ever be coaching in England again. I think if he's the coach, I think it'll be back in Italy. I can't see him going to the Premier League again.
So, final question on this: Who do you think, if United did sack Ten Hag, who do you think they would end up with?
I think they would make a play for Graham Potter.
Potter. Let's talk about the other team in the game, Man City. I mean, absolutely blew United away. And as we know, Man City, they aren't too fussed on scoring loads of goals. They're very much deaf by possession, and United really couldn't get near them in that second half, especially. I mean, did they put out a statement? Did the rest of the league, everyone talking about Liverpool being back, Arsenal being an hour year wiser after last year, Spurs obviously come out of nowhere. They possibly never had as many challengers in the one season as they have now. I know it's very early days, but it's rare. I mean, I seen today that it's the first time ever we've had 3 teams after 10 games on 24 points. Liverpool are a point behind in 23, Villa a point behind in 22. I don't think we've ever had that kind of standard after 10 games. So, I mean, was that a bit of noise from all our clubs? Do you think City just put that out by saying, look, we're not going anywhere?
It's like, I don't think Man City need to put out a statement. They say they're not going anywhere. I think all them clubs realise that no matter how good we're doing, Man City are always going to be there. They're always going to be the main threat. So, as I say, like, they're just like, they're like a cockroach who doesn't go away. They just won't leave. And as I know from experience, they've popped us to 2 titles or 3 titles, if you think of the Gerrard one back in the day. So they just seem to be a team that no matter who challenges them, they always seem to puppy to the finish line at the end.
I mean, are they still the favourites through, even after, all this, they've had a few injuries, the possible talk of a hangover from the Champions League and the treble winning season. I mean, are they still very much the favourites for you in the team they beat?
They are.
Would you be surprised if somebody else won it?
I don't know.
Or do you think they're more vulnerable this year?
I'm not as scared as them as I was previous years. Maybe that's to do with that they've already lost 2 games early on. Maybe it's just a bit of like hope in me, but I just think the other 3 teams are strong as well. So if just say we play City after international break, if we got a draw out of that, I'd be very happy.
I mean, I want to talk about Bernardo Silva because everyone speaks about De Bruyne, Haaland, Foden, Rodri, all these players, but I mean, Bernardo Silva ran that game yesterday. I mean, you look at the Champions League run on, he was instrumental. I think he scored the first goal, didn't he, against Real Madrid in the home game, the second leg. So I mean, this is a big game player. I mean, do you feel he gets the credit he deserves?
He doesn't know, but I said to you at the top of the show, like, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. And just to take it back to Bruno Fernandes, like, that's night and day. Both Portuguese internationals, both supposed to be top players, top professionals, and Bernardo just blows him out of the water. He's just, I just, as a rival fan, it pains me to say it, but he's one of my favourite players to watch, and he always has been.
Seems to do everything without a fuss, doesn't he? He just seems to, go about his business in a very, very calm, collected way.
They said yesterday, like, Pep can seem to play him any position, and it doesn't seem to phase him. He's played as a defensive midfielder at times. He's played as a number 10, number 8. He's played on the right wing. So he seems to be that type of player that can just play anywhere, and it doesn't seem to phase him, and it doesn't seem to affect him as a player.
He's a manager's dream. I mean, they were very keen to keep him in the summer. There was talk of him moving on. Obviously, they lost Gundogan and Mahrez, but
there's been a few years of talk of him moving on. The likes of Barca, and then I think Saudi tried to buy him, didn't they? I think if he went to Saudi, it would be a really shame.
Yeah, Man City's next 6 games coming up currently sitting on 24 points, 2 points behind league leaders Spurs. Bournemouth at home, Chelsea away, Liverpool at home, Spurs home, Villa away, Luton away. I mean, if you look at that run there of Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, Villa, pretty tough.
Yep.
Man City, no matter who they play, they're always going to be favourites, whether home or away.
Yep.
Even if you look at them when they go to Anfield, everyone seems to fancy them, and that's probably the toughest game you can have. So, I mean,
and they've only won
6 games. There are some tricky ones on there. So, I mean, how do you think City will fare? Do you see them winning all 6, or do you see them maybe dropping points in some of them games?
Well, obviously, I hope they drop points in one of the games. But for me, I think I do. It pains me. I do think they'll win them all, and that includes Liverpool in that.
Where do you think they're most likely to drop points? Do you think it'll be away to Chelsea or away to Villa, or maybe one of them home games against Liverpool or Spurs?
Probably Liverpool or Spurs. Because I
think that's going to be the two that everyone's going to look at. That's possibly the 2 games where City are probably going to know they're going to have to be at their best, and that's when they usually are at their best. So, I mean, do you expect City to come under them? The fact they're back to back too, that do you expect City to be at their best for them 2 games?
Well, obviously you do, and they're both at home. But the factor on with the Liverpool one too, it's straight after an international break, so you don't know what, and it's at 12:30 again. But we'll not get into that. You don't know Spurs.
Yeah, I'm saying Spurs home, always 3 points for Spurs. Well, we've actually had a lot of good results at home against them. We did beat them away from home a couple of years ago when Kane scored in the last minute. And we were actually 2-0 up last year. I remember I was at the game away from home when we blew it 4-2. But I mean, we do seem to have we seem to really benefit playing Man City. Whereas like when we play U's, we never seem to get results against U's, apart from this season when VAR had an off day. But I mean, City seems to be maybe Spurs' bogey team. But I mean, I think the attitude's going to be completely different this time. I think they're going to view Spurs as a lot more serious of a challenger.
I think
so.
Even when we had our bad season last season, there seems to be that rivalry between Liverpool and Spurs. So there's always a bit of, or Liverpool and City, sorry, there's always a bit of bite in them games. So if they were to drop points in any of them, I think it would be Liverpool or Spurs. But if they were to drop points in both, it would be very interesting.
Right, we're going to do this. We're going to predict these points because I want to try and get a feel for the table come the end of these 6 games. This 6 games take you up the beginning of the Christmas fixtures, which start on the 15th, 16th of December. We've got Bournemouth. Everyone's got 2 games for the international break. Then they play 1 game after the international break, and then there's a full week of games where they play like Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, for example. I know some teams are over different days, but kind of similar to that. So the last 3 games are going to be within a space of 7 or 8 days. So it's going to be a big week that for everyone. But I mean, so you think they're going to get 18 points then?
Well, no, I'm going to say Liverpool get a draw and Spurs get a draw. I've changed my mind.
I think they're going to lose one of them games. I really do. I think Liverpool or Spurs will beat them. And I think it'll be if Liverpool beat them, Spurs will feel the full force of Man City on the rebound. Yeah. And I think if City beat Liverpool, it might make them a touch vulnerable, and Spurs could maybe possibly do them. But
do you think if Liverpool beat them, it would make Liverpool favourites for the title?
Hard to say. It really is because it would be impossible to write Man City off. But
yeah,
I don't know. I think that this league's going to be really tight this year. I really do. But I'm going to go. Do you know what? We'll stick with your prediction. I think that's not a bad prediction. You're going to go Bournemouth 1, Chelsea 1, Liverpool and Spurs are going to draw. Villa away they'll 1 and Luton away they'll 1. So that'll be 14. Is that no? 14 points they'll get.
Yeah, I think
would even 38. Right.
Yeah. I think when they play Luton away, it could be a Premier League record here.
Don't know, because Luton away is a tight pitch, and I don't think that'll. And as you say, Man City are just happy to keep the ball. They're not like a Liverpool or an Arsenal where they're going to try and go out and smash teams. I think they're happy to keep the ball.
I think when we play Luton at the weekend, we could smash them.
They haven't actually had a pissing away at the Kenilworth Road yet, but because I think it's so different. Obviously, Spurs went there. It's so different to any game you'll play. You know, it really is. It's a really tight pitch, and it's not the easiest place to go. But be interesting to see. Cam saying you can't forget about Villa's excellent home record. That'll be a chance they drop points. So we're going to go with 14 points for City. That'll leave
Yeah,
them on 38 points going into that Christmas period. So Man
yeah.
City being 38. We're going to move on and talk about Brentford, Chelsea at the weekend, because I mean Chelsea were stunned. I think everyone expected Chelsea to get on a run now after them positive results. And to be fair, this Brentford game was a big one for them because it was I wouldn't say it was an easy fixture, but it was the most favourable fixture that they're going to have for a while.
Yeah.
And
Because
after
Brentford
that
haven't
result,
done that great this year so far.
no, Brentford have been struggling a wee bit. I only beat Burnley the week before, but apart from that, they have been pretty much struggling. And it's their third victory in a row at Stamford Bridge. Um,
That's
they've won
mad, isn't it?
2-0, 4-1, and 2-0. So I mean, they've really enjoyed going to Stamford Bridge. I mean, did you watch the game? I mean, I was watching it. I mean, Chelsea first half were dominant. Probably should have scored a couple of goals, and it's the same old problem. They didn't score, and they faded in the second half. Brentford
Yeah.
grew in confidence, got the goal, set them up. They hit them on the counter attack, and Chelsea ran out of steam, ran out of ideas, and in the end, they could have lost by more in the end. Before Brentford made it 2-0, they had a chance. They had 2 chances to score, and they missed them.
The keeper saved, Sanchez saved from Wemo, was it?
So I mean, what did you think? I mean, I was chatting to a Chelsea fan, and he said something to me that it resonated with me so well. He says every Chelsea home game over the last sort of year, they've only won 3 out of 21, but he says nearly all of them are the same. You could
Yeah.
literally record a game, change the colours and the kits and the time and kickoff, but everything stays the same. Chelsea dominate the game first half, don't score, and end up getting caught in the second half. So I mean, this is an ongoing trend. It's happened with Potter, it's happened with Lampard, and now it's happening with Pochettino. So I mean, what is the biggest problem with Chelsea at the minute?
It's just goal scoring. They can keep the ball, they can create chances, they just don't have the player. They just don't have a player who can finish them regularly. Like when you
It's
look,
different it's different to Man United, because when I watch United, I don't really see any identity, any style of play.
yeah,
Whereas Chelsea, you can sort of see what they're trying to do. They create chances, play decent football,
I mean,
but literally can't put the ball in the net.
like if you look at the teams at the top at the minute, and Kelly scored a hat trick at the weekend. Liverpool have Salah, and obviously Nunez gets a bit of hit, but he will score you goals. Son will score you goals. Haaland will obviously score you goals. Even for Villa, you have Ollie Watkins. Like Chelsea don't have that type of player that is going to get you 10, 15 goals a season, and that's what they
Mm.
need at the minute. I honestly don't get how you can spend £1 billion and not buy a top class striker. It just baffles me.
See if the $1 billion they've spent, are they any better than they were a year ago?
I don't think they're. If anything, I think they're worse.
Even I mean, obviously it's easy to say when it comes to look at their points, the results, but I mean, even individually, are they any better than they were when they won the Champions League, say in 2021?
I can't say it. They've just gone ever since they've won the Champions League. Or sorry, ever since Todd Bowley's come in, he just thinks he can throw money at it, and that'll solve his problems. But well, when he first came in, he thought he could play a 4-4-3 formation. So it shows you how much he knew about European football. And I think he said something like Chelsea have a divine right to be in the Champions League every season, and it's looking likely that they won't be in it now for 2 years. So it's just a mess at Chelsea, and I do see a lot of Chelsea fans turning on the owners. I said to you in the summer when they were spending all this money, Chelsea fans were saying, "Oh, this is great," but it's only great if it works out, and it doesn't seem to be working out at the minute because you see the likes of Mudryk can barely get a game. They have, I know Lavia is injured at the minute, but he must be thinking, "Why the hell did I decide to join the Easons over Liverpool?" Caicedo hasn't pulled up any trees yet. It's and they have Nkunku who's injured, so there's just you can list off 3 11s and not. I don't think one of their players gets into the top 4 teams at the minute.
I mean, a lot of focus now on Pochettino. He looked lost at that final whistle. You could see
He
he was
was
complaining
arguing with
about
a
the
fan,
ball.
wasn't it?
What's up?
I think he was arguing with a fan.
And he's arguing with a fan. He's arguing with a 4-for-5. He never had that kind of behaviour at Spurs, and that suggests to me that he's feeling the pressure. I think he's probably frustrated too, because I don't think anyone would say they deserve to be where they are. I think they should have more points. I think where United are, they're fortunate they have their 15 points. I think Chelsea probably should have more points.
Yeah.
But he looks like he's got the wood of a word on his shoulders. I mean, I think everyone expected Chelsea this year to be minimum fighting for
top
the Champions
six.
League, if not qualifying for it. They're now
Yeah,
11 points behind Liverpool in fourth. That's a
that is it.
huge gap this Saturday. And if you look, we're going to look at the games they have coming up in a wee minute. But I
Yeah.
mean, this is now in dire straits. They have to start getting points on the board. I mean, can Pochettino be the man to solve these goal scoring problems? I mean, is this going to be on him? Because he Todd Bowley maybe was picking the players and there was other people involved, but I mean, he's the man tasked to put this together. That we were told when Potter came on, he was going to get time, and the end results became untenable. Is there a danger the same thing happens with Pochettino? Because we know Todd Bowley said he expects Chelsea to be challenging for leagues eventually. So I mean, if Chelsea are languishing mid-table, can't get results against the better teams, what's they say he doesn't pull the trigger with this man?
He pulled the trigger with Thomas Tuchel as soon as he came in, and he won them the Champions League this season before. So he's not the most he's not afraid to sack managers, and we keep going back to it. But Pochettino has the Spurs connection too, which didn't stand him in a lot of good faith with Chelsea fans, and I see a few of them online are turning on him already. And if they go to Spurs and get
How do you think he'll be feeling coming on? I mean, he's bound to be nervous coming now on Monday night. I mean, Spurs there's no way he could have anticipated this when the fixtures come out, he'd have been looking at that game thinking, right, big game. But I mean, you couldn't really foresee this. Spurs are 14 points ahead of Chelsea after 10 games. Everything around Spurs at the minute's buzzing. I mean, all the talk in the summer was Spurs wanted Pochettino back. All the fans said at the start of the summer we'd love Pochettino to come back. He ended up going to Chelsea. Spurs get Postecoglou. But I mean, Pochettino's name hasn't been mentioned at all now with Spurs fans. They love Postecoglou. They're actually making songs up about Pochettino now, about Spurs being 14 points ahead of them. You'll actually hear that Monday night. There's a song being done up for it.
you're gonna sing it.
I'll be there, so I probably will be singing it. But I mean, I think he's going to get. Whereas, where in the summer, where I heard a lot of people saying they were split on the, what kind of reception he's going to get because of how well Postecoglou's doing. There's going to be a huge, huge chorus of fans that are going to boo Pochettino, which might seem harsh. Which might seem harsh based on what he did, but I think the fact he's went to Chelsea, he's burned his bridges with Spurs fans. Well, that's right or wrong, but I mean, do you think he'll be feeling the pressure coming into this game that he really has something to prove now to the Chelsea fans that he can be a man to get a result in a big game, because they haven't won a big game for a long time?
No, I definitely think he will be feeling the pressure, especially going back to his former club, was it his former stadium? Was he on this?
He was, but I mean, he couldn't be coming back under worse circumstances. Chelsea are struggling and Spurs are flying.
So he's probably thinking, why couldn't this happen when I was? Well, it kind of did, but not to this extent. He's got the Champions League final. Obviously, he's done won it. Had to get that in there. Apologies, but no, he will be feeling the pressure, and especially I think Spurs will come out of the traps flying in that game, because they'll want to show
vulnerability in Chelsea, won't they?
They'll want to show. I think if Spurs get their first goal, it's over, because Chelsea, as we say, can't have a barn door at the minute, and Spurs just seem to be riding a wave of momentum that doesn't stop them. So it'll be an interesting game, but I do expect Spurs to win it pretty comfortable.
It'll be kicking off basically around this time next week. I mean, I can't wait to be there. But I mean, I think for the neutrals, this is a great game because the atmosphere is going to be unbelievable, isn't it?
I'll be watching it myself, yeah.
We've seen the Battle of the Bridge. We've seen, games where Spurs Chelsea, it's been feisty. I mean, you expect another feisty encounter. The fact that the Pochettino thing coming on it, the fact that Spurs are flying. I mean, the atmosphere is going to be incredible, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be a hostile situation for Chelsea. They're gonna be booed. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a red card.
That's my only worry, that maybe Spurs could be too carried away. But look, we'll come on to the game that are on the podcast. I mean, I want to cut Pochettino some slack, because as much as I'm very much behind Postecoglou, you still do, some part of me does feel sorry for Pochettino, because I do think he is a top coach. And I mean, can he do any more than what he's doing? Because I mean, if players is missing gilt age chances, he's there to obviously improve that. But his style of play, if you look at Chelsea and United aren't really doing anything in games, whereas Chelsea are creating chance after chance after chance. So can he do any more than what he's doing? Because I mean, it's not his fault the players is missing from 5 or 6 yards, is it?
It's not, but if you look at some of the decisions he's making, he played, I think it was Disasi at right back the other day, dropped Gusto for no reason. Gusto's been playing well. I don't know if Reece James is still carrying an injury. He was playing Cucurella on the left wing. Sometimes he plays the young boy Matson in midfield as well. Like, he seems to be trying to shoehorn players into positions that he doesn't
One,
fit.
one of his biggest criticisms at Spurs towards the end was that his subs came too late in games, or he made the wrong substitutions. I mean, do you think that's happening because Chelsea are starting off games well, but unable to see them out, or when they don't score, they're losing belief? Is that one more you can maybe lay the blame that he's unable to maybe change games when they are starting to struggle? He's been unable to sort of rescue the games.
I mean, when you look at Chelsea too, they have a massive squad. Like, so he has to leave out loads of players every game, and he's so even Chelsea's bench at the minute isn't too strong. So he doesn't really have the options to pick from, which sounds mad after spending £1 billion. Like, as we've said, Lave is injured. They brought on a young boy that they signed from Brazil at the weekend. Like, you can't really throw him into the deep end. So it just they're it's just a problem that Chelsea have at the minute. I think their approach to the transfer windows hasn't been great. I just think they went, well, Todd Bowley especially went in there thinking, I'll spend all this money and we'll automatically become title challengers.
I mean, goal scoring's been a huge issue, and they say the lack of a striker. But I mean,
I also
Brentford have the same problem. I mean, they've lost Ivan
think,
Toney. He scored 20 Premier League goals last season, yet they're still able to score 3 against Burnley and score 2 at Stamford Bridge. I mean, so they've found a way to win games without Toney.
I mean,
So I
they
mean,
have
is that a valid excuse for Chelsea? They've no striker.
they do have strikers. It's just the strikers aren't good enough. Like, when you look at someone like Brian Bremo from Brentford, he seemed he bags you. I think I think he has 7 goals this season already. So
I mean,
he bags you a few goals this season. So Chelsea just need a player like that who maybe isn't clinical, but will bag you at least 10, 15 goals.
But I mean, Sterling's been a goal scorer. He's not scoring a lot. He's playing well, but he's not scoring loads and loads of goals. I mean, Mudryk had a reputation for scoring goals in Ukraine. Broja, who come on and done all right, he hasn't been scoring goals. He done well at Southampton. So, I mean, what is it that they just cannot seem to put the ball in the back of the net? These are professional footballers.
Yeah. It's
Do you think it's a lack of confidence? Just
probably is that because they're going into every game with most Chelsea games are on TV, and players are human too. They're going to see their misses clipped up on Twitter, getting buntered off by rival fans, and that's obviously going to have an effect on them. So it probably has a lack of confidence. It could be boiled down to Poch doesn't know his best 11 yet. Obviously, they have Nkunku as well. He hasn't featured yet.
the season could be over by the time he comes back. The season could be virtually over.
Their season now. So I think, and Poch at the start of the season said that he guaranteed that Chelsea would be in Europe next season, and
that's looking like a
that's looking like a pipe dream at this point.
I mean, they've got a seriously tough run of games coming up. But I mean, before we look at these fixtures, Chelsea have played Arsenal at home and got a draw. They played Liverpool at home and got a draw. So they have done a wee bit better in the games. I mean, do you think? I mean, they had that record now after Saturday if they've only won 3 out of 21 home games. Their last 21 Premier League games at home, they've only won 3 of them.
I saw a thing on Facebook where it says Brentford has won as many games at Stamford Bridge this year than Chelsea have.
They've won more games at Stamford Bridge since April than Chelsea have, which is incredible. But I mean, do you think they maybe might benefit from playing these teams because the pressure might be off slightly? I mean, everyone's going to expect Spurs to get a result on Monday, so could that take some of the pressure off? Because we've seen them play against Liverpool and they've done quite well, and they've done better against Arsenal where it's a bit more open and they don't have to break teams down with low blocks.
I was just going to say that it seems to be. I think Chelsea have a sort of problem that Liverpool did last season. Whereas they can't break down low blocks, and when teams like Liverpool, like Spurs, like Arsenal, they'll come out and attack them, which will lead to a more open game, which will lead to more chances. And if the more chances you get, you're more likely to get one or two goals. So maybe the Spurs game will suit them more, but I still think Spurs will win comfortable.
I mean, look at these games. I mean, this is if you're Pochettino, you're fearing because you've got Spurs away,
I
Man
actually
City
can't
at
see
home,
them winning. I can't see them winning any of them.
Spurs away, Man City at home, Newcastle away, Brighton at home, Man United away, and Everton away. I mean, right? So they've got Spurs away and Man City at home before international break. I mean,
0 points.
if they lose them two games, and I mean if they're beat handsomely, if Spurs put a few past them and City beat them, what kind of pressure is he under during the international break? Because they're going to be sitting on the bottom half of the table. Any chance at top four is going to be well out of sight. Even fifth place, that that sort of maybe if we get fifth, it'll be. But you could be Villa aren't dropping points, so that they could be completely miles away from fifth too.
Yeah.
They haven't got the insurance of say a Liverpool or if United drop into the Europa League of maybe one and not to get into the Champions League. They aren't in Europe. So they will be unable to get into the Champions League that way. So what kind of pressure would he be under going on that international break?
It's the same. It's sort of the same as Ten Hag, isn't it? It's sort of a case of which club will blink first, who'll get sacked first. So he'll be under immense pressure, I think, especially if he loses to Spurs and loses to City, and then comes back after the international break.
Do you think before he comes to them games, if he loses them two games, do you still think he'd be in charge for Newcastle?
Just about.
And if results don't go well in them games, you think he's gone? He's finished.
I think if he loses the Spurs and City, he'll stay for Newcastle. But I think if he loses to Newcastle, it could be gone. Now here's a question: who do you think will be sacked first, Pochettino or Ten Hag?
That's $1 million. I mean, looking at Chelsea's fixtures, they're great. They are graveyard fixtures for any manager that's under pressure. I mean,
that could be about.
You say like where do you couldn't guarantee a one there if he. I mean, they've struggled at home. So, Man City at home, I don't see them beating City at home. And Spurs away, you have to fancy Spurs the way Spurs is playing. Newcastle away is up there now with one of the hardest away games you can have. It's hard to see them going there and winning. Brighton at home is probably the most favourable of the fixtures. But again, they've had that problem at home of scoring of beaten teams. I mean, Brighton have enjoyed going there in the last couple of seasons as well in the league. United away. If both managers get that game, that could be the El Saka go. I mean, whoever loses that could be in trouble. But I mean,
Everton away too is difficult, but you don't know what type of situation Everton could be in by then. They could be 12 points deducted by then, so you don't know.
Anyway, go on. Let's go back. Sorry, before we come on to Chelsea, see United. We had City on 38 points. We forgot to do the points for United. I'm just remembering here. So, many points do you think they'll get there? Do we try and plan out how many points these teams will have?
3, 6, 7, 10.
So United on 25. Chelsea are on 12 at the moment. How many points do you see Chelsea getting from M6?
1.
1 point.
1 then.
Right, they would be in deep trouble. I would definitely be gone.
I think they're most likely, as you say, is Brighton at home.
So 1 point for Chelsea. You're giving them they'd be somewhere near the bottom, wouldn't they?
I just can't say. But it's just because they don't score goals.
Let's look back at some of the rest of the weekend's games. I mean, it all started off on Friday night. All the pressure was in Spurs. People says Palace was going to be a tricky game. I mean, the scoreline probably flattered Palace in the end. We get that late goal and they put a wee bit of pressure on for the last few minutes. But once Spurs got
the late goal was a bit dodged too, from what I see.
Well, it should have been the handball, but. I mean, once Spurs got the first goal, they never looked back, and it was so comfortable in the end, up until that 93rd, 94th minute where they conceded the goal. I mean, they were 5 points clear, only for a day or so. All the other teams won, so it's back to how it was at the start of the weekend. 2 points clear. I mean, we're now 10 games on. At what point do you as a rival fan start looking at Spurs and thinking, hold on, they're going to be up there, or we need to watch out for these? Are we at that point yet, or do you still feel you've got some way to go to prove they're genuine title contenders?
I mean, like the points are there for a reason. Like they deserve to be there. They've probably been the most consistent. The only game that I think they should have got probably a draw out of is the Liverpool game if it wasn't for the Madigan goal and the order debacle around the game. But we'll not get into that again. But
I mean, it's
like
26 points out of 30. They've never been in this position in a Premier League season before, where they've had 26 points after 10 games. This is their best start since 1960, 1961, which, funny enough, was the last time they won the league. So it was a long, long time ago, over 60 years ago.
way before I think, you know.
We've seen last season Arsenal had a similar start. And if
They
Spurs
should
were to
have.
won their next 2 games for the international break, they will be on 32 points after 12 games. That will be 1 point more than Arsenal had after 12 games last year. So I mean, the only way for me, a team that are going to challenge that unexpected to challenge, the only way you can do that is starting off well. You're never going to, Spurs aren't going to be a Man City where they're 9 points behind and chase down. They're not going to do that. The only way they're going to ever compete is if they start off well, get a bit of a gap, because you would expect them at some stage they have a bit of a stumble. So I mean, where do you think now? More every week, I'm seeing more and more people are saying Spurs are looking, they're looking like they're there to stay. So where's the tipping point for you? Is it these next 6 games, because they've got a tough run of games coming up. I mean, they've got Chelsea at home, Wolves away before the international break. They've got Villa at home, Man City away, West Ham home, and Newcastle at home. Looking at them 6 games, I mean, is that the big test for Spurs? If they come out of them 6 games still top of the league, would you say that they are genuine contenders?
If they come out of that 6 fixtures, well, I would say if they get up the City game and they still haven't lost or draw points, then I would start to really be concerned.
I mean, let's try and get a
Not
read
con-
on them. I mean,
not concerned because I would like someone else other than City to win the league.
well, I mean, but if Liverpool's involved, you want to have as
Yeah.
less teams involved as possible. I mean,
Yeah.
let's do these individually. Chelsea at home. How do you see that going?
I think that's an easy one for Spurs.
Wolves away.
What you asked me this on it? I can't remember what I said, but anyway, I'll go.
Now that Neto's injured as well, I think that favours Spurs.
I'll go a 1. I'll go a 1 at Spurs. A 1 for Spurs. Sorry, couldn't
Do you
get me
expect
worded.
Spurs to be top going on the international break now? Because if they won their 2 games, obviously they can't be pushed off.
I do, yeah.
And then they come back to them 4 tough games, you would say, although 3 of them are at home with the Man City away game in between. But I mean, that's 4 huge games. I think everyone would expect them to beat Chelsea and Wolves. Obviously, nothing's ever set in stone, but I think the other 4 are all tougher than them 2. Yeah. Wolves away would have been very tough, I think, with Neto, but the fact Neto's going to be injured now, I think.
When is the Wolves game? Is it a night game or a?
No, it's a 12:30 kickoff.
They're always
them games that Liverpool don't like.
We get about 40 of them after international breaks.
They're doing all right with 12:30 kickoffs this year. And then they've got Villa at home. How do you see that going? I mean, Villa seem to be very strong at home, but away from home, they seem to struggle against the top teams. That's the thing with Villa.
I would say Spurs would just about in that guy. I would say there'll be 1 goal in that.
And then Man City away. Do you think is that where they come unstuck?
Well, we've already said draw. So,
I mean, if Spurs were to get 10 points coming out of them 4, I mean, they'd be buzzing.
If you were to get my full prediction for the City game, I do think Spurs will just lose, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get a draw.
All right, I'm going to push you here. We've already says draw of me, so I can't even, because it's going to affect it. So, Man City draw. West Ham at home.
I mean, you have to win that. West Ham have been on a wretched run of form at the minute. They were awful yesterday against Everton.
Nah, Moyes is coming under pressure. And Newcastle at home again. Newcastle seem to do well at home, but struggle away. Even couldn't beat Wolves at the weekend. So
I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna put my neck out and say Newcastle 1.
Spurs are going to lose at home to Newcastle after going away. So you think might lose that game? So that would leave Spurs on 3, 6, 9, 10, 13 points.
I mean, you would take that, wouldn't you?
Well, it'd be gutted if they get the 13 before Newcastle and drop points. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say they're going to beat Chelsea. I think they're going to beat Wolves. I think they'll beat Villa. I think they'll lose to City. I think they'll beat West Ham. They'll beat Newcastle.
Yep. So that would be what 13 points as well.
15.
So we're probably in the same. We're in the same ballpark, really.
So by your table, you're going to have him on. You're going to have Spurs on 13, so I would leave him on, what's that, 39 points. My table, I'm going to have him on 41.
Yep.
Although I see City would, I think City will win all their games, so I think City will be on 40. I think City will be on 42.
Yep.
But it'll be interesting. Let's move on. Talk about Arsenal. I mean, they completely destroyed Sheffield United. And they rotated quite a lot too. Didn't play their strongest team.
Didn't Nketiah get a hat-trick?
Nketiah gets a hat-trick. I mean, are they still the most likely team they wanted if City don't, in your opinion?
You can't really say at the moment because everyone seems to be close to everyone. So I think
the fact they pushed City last year, but would they still be your team most likely they want it, or do you still think Liverpool and Spurs have just as much chance as Arsenal do?
I think Liverpool and Spurs have just as much chance as we're sitting at the minute.
James is saying just worry about the next game. I know, but James says if you can't dream, you're not a football fan, right?
Who does James support?
James is a Liverpool fan. We're going to be doing Liverpool's fixtures next. I mean, Arsenal's next 6 games: Newcastle away at the weekend. As we says, Newcastle at home are they're always strong at home, so that'll be a tough game. Burnley at home, favourable. Brentford away, they seem to have turned a wee bit of a corner. That'll be tough. Wolves at home, Luton away, and Villa away. So there's a few tough away games on there. Newcastle away, Brentford away, and Villa away. They'll not be easy. So, I mean, there's no big hitter on there. There's no like a Man City or Liverpool on there, or a Spurs, or a team where you go, well, it's level for level. I think they've got better players in every team there, but definitely Newcastle, Brentford, and Villa are test. I mean, Newcastle are a strong home team, Brentford are a strong home team, and Villa are a very, very strong home team. So, how do you assess them?
I think they'll draw with Newcastle. They'll beat Brentford. They'll beat Wolves. They'll beat Luton, and I think, I'm going to say they'll just about beat Villa.
And if you didn't do Burnley either.
Oh, Burnley, yeah, they'll beat Burnley.
So you draw with Newcastle, beat Burnley, Brentford,
beat Brentford, beat Wolves, beat Luton, draw with Villa. Beat Villa.
So you expect them to 1-5 and draw the R1?
Yep.
So that would leave Arsenal. That would mean they'd have 16 points of that, so they'd be on 40 points. So by your estimate, Arsenal's top of the table after these games, unless Liverpool match Arsenal. Even if Liverpool already won all their games, they'd still be a point behind. I mean, let's talk about your mob. I mean, very routine victory over Nottingham Forest. Do you think it's helping Liverpool that everyone's talking? I think Spurs have sort of been flagged up because they're top. Ange just seems to be making a lot of friends in the media. Everyone's talking about City being back and Arsenal being the most likely challenge. Have Liverpool been flying on the radar a wee bit? And you think is that good for Liverpool? That not too much pressure on them?
I don't know if we've been flying under the radar, but I don't think Liverpool are never going to fly under the radar. Like, we're one of the biggest clubs in England, but I think people are getting more talked about. Spurs are getting more talked about. Probably the reason Spurs are getting more talked about is probably because no one really expected this to happen. But I said to you from the start of the season, I think Liverpool would be top 4 easy, and it seems to be my prediction is coming true at the moment. And me and you have had arguments, well, not arguments, but disagreements about Núñez. I think he's showing this season that he has the quality to be a top striker. Szoboszlai is just, I'm in love with the man. Like, so I think everything's rosy by Liverpool at the minute.
Before we do Liverpool games, I must give my predictions for Arsenal. I think they'll draw with Newcastle, beat Burnley, beat Brentford, beat Wolves, beat Luton, and lose to Villa.
So you expect them to lose the Villa, where I said they would win the Villa?
I think they'll lose that game. Liverpool's next 6: Luton away, Brentford home, Man City away, Fulham at home, Sheffield United away, and Palace away. How do you see them going?
I think we'll win them all, apart from the City game.
And you all draw that, you said, didn't you? So I think my predictions are very similar. We've just disagreed on some of them. We Man City involved, but I think he'll beat Luton, beat Brentford, lose to City, beat Fulham, beat Sheffield, and beat Palace. I don't think the table's going to look much different than it will in second. I think City will be top. I think Spurs will be second.
Liverpool
I think Liverpool third and Arsenal fourth. You have City. You have Arsenal top. You have Liverpool second, Spurs third, and City fourth. I think that's the way yours would work out. And I think about 4 points separate in all four, so we begin very, very tight.
So that's what I said at the start of the show. Like, I think this, I could tell just that we aren't struggling anymore.
Callum makes a great point. Liverpool one of these home games without really any fuss. They destroyed West Ham, destroyed Villa, destroyed Forest.
If you look last season,
they do seem to have sorted out that defense. Where I think Callum was hinting that last year teams were, like, even when Liverpool played at home, teams were getting chances. They score goals. I mean, that doesn't seem to be happening as much this season.
No, I think like last season we lost the Leeds at home. I think we lost lost the Forest away, Forest at home.
Forest away.
I
remember that game because we were on holidays during it. These were beat 1-0.
We lost games last season that we shouldn't have been losing, and we've seen they have stopped that from happening. And the last two games, we haven't been playing the best opposition, but 2 clean sheets, like, and Salah's firing and all.
Danny's saying the wheels will fall off Spurs shouldn't, with 1 or 2 big injuries and they're in big trouble. But could you not say it about any team? I mean, if Liverpool were to lose Salah, if Arsenal were to lose Saka, if City were to lose Haaland, there's no ready-made replacement for them players, is there?
Maybe the argument there is City have goals throughout the team, but Liverpool, if we lose Salah, I think we would struggle big time.
And I agree, Spurs maybe we saw him, but I mean, I still think a lot of teams rely on individuals as well. I mean, when City lost Rodri for a couple of games, they didn't look half a team, did they? So,
in my opinion, like, maybe I'm being a bit biased, but in my opinion, Salah's the best player in the league at the moment.
He's definitely up there. I mean, judging by how we've done them fixtures, and obviously nothing's ever set in stone, there might be a couple of shocks as we go on, but I mean, we sort of rhymed off all them top teams. They won out of them 6 games. I think everybody was down to won at least 4, if not 5. Even some people would expect City to win all 6, and that's even having Liverpool and Spurs at home. I mean, as the standard at the top of the table, better than it's ever been. I mean, I said earlier on the show that we've never had 3 teams on 24 points plus. We've got Spurs 26, Man City 24, and Arsenal 24. We've never ever had that in Premier League after 10 games. We've also got Liverpool on 23, Villa on 22. I mean, is this the toughest league possible? Is this the toughest league we've ever had?
Not even just the top of the league. If you look at the middle of it, you have, I know West Ham are struggling, but they can be up there. Brighton's up there. Villa's up there. Like, you can.
Just in case, I know Man City and Liverpool 1 season and 2 seasons went toe to toe and get 90+ points each. But I mean the extent of these teams all being up there, having 4 teams, 5 teams possibly, all 22 points plus.
And for me, having all them teams up there, I am not going to lie and say I would love Liverpool to be peeling away and won every game. But for the league as a whole, for neutrals, I think it's as James says there, it's good they have all these teams up there piling the pressure on City.
He says he needs 5 or 6 teams. They put so much pressure on Man City. I mean, anyone watching, Danny, Martin, Ward's commenting, Callum. I mean, who do you see as who do you think will win the league, and who do you see? You know, I mean, do you expect 4 or 5 teams to be challenging come April, May, or do you think eventually there'll be a gap breaking off? I mean, Owen, what about you? I mean, do you see all these 4 teams being involved come the last 4 or 5 games, or do you think eventually maybe 2 will break away?
I think 2 will maybe not break away of like 5-6 points, but I think there could be like a 3-point gap going into the last couple of games. It'll be interesting, but it's
Martin saying City could be playing catch up with a FIFA World Cup Championship. It won't help them, but I mean, it's only a couple of games. And if you look at it, the Brentford game's postponed at Christmas, so they don't have to worry about that.
I mean, Liverpool had the
City last year, didn't they have games in hand over Arsenal, and they ended up coming back. So I mean, if there's any team can do it, it would be City, and it wouldn't be Panama hopes. The year we had the Club World Cup, we came back and didn't struggle. And we ended up winning the league. So. I mean, I don't know some of the viewers watching who do they see being the teams challenging.
What do you think from April, May? Then what's your
Callum saying I have to say City until they prove otherwise. I see it being relatively close between City, Liverpool, and Arsenal. So Callum's writing Spurs off. I mean, Owen, do you see it more likely being them 3 involved than maybe Spurs dropping away, or do you think it would be foolish to write Spurs off the way they're playing?
I just think, as the previous comment said there, if Spurs do get injuries, obviously our team's good. It could really hurt them. But another thing could be it was the experience of Liverpool, City, and Arsenal challenging for the league. Spurs don't really have that experience at the minute, so I think that could prove difficult for Spurs.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that Spurs do have over these teams is they have no European football. They're out of the League Cup. They've just beat Palace on Friday night and have a 10-day rest. They played Chelsea. I mean, is there any sort of factor in that could help Spurs? I mean, over these other teams that if they're playing like Arsenal, Liverpool, or both playing League Cup this week, then they'll be playing in Europe next week along with Man City. I mean, it's never set in stone, but the more games you play, the more likely you are to get injuries. Training injuries they do happen, but they're less likely to happen. I mean, than a competitive game. So could that swing, if it's tight, could that swing anyway in Spurs' favour, do you think?
It could do, but the other thing there is a lot of the big players will be getting rested in those games. Well, in Liverpool's case, anyway, for the Europa League,
come February and March, that won't be the case, will it?
Yeah, suppose it'll be interesting to see, but I just think Liverpool, City, and Arsenal have stronger overall squads than Spurs.
No, I agree. I think Spurs are up against it, but if there's anything that they can maybe pan their hopes to, is if they remain consistent. The fact they've only got the Premier League to focus on. I mean, if Spurs come out of that Christmas period anywhere near the top, or if they're still on top, for me, I'm completely writing off the FA Cup too. I would put out the reserves. I would focus on the Premier League because you will never get a better shot. We're not Liverpool. We're not Man City. We're not Arsenal in terms of, we're not going to be in this position too often. I think you have to put everything on it. So that will be how I would go about it. I mean, James is saying here, the more times the big clubs won it, will be hard to beat them. I'm not sure what he means by that. The more times the big clubs won it, it will be hard to beat them. Sorry, James, just clarify that. I'm a wee bit confused there.
Maybe he's talking about the Club World Cup.
I mean, let's move on to talk about the relegation sides. I mean, it's grim at the bottom for Sheffield, really. I mean, 1 point from 10 games. Burnley have 4 points. Luton have 5 points.
Would you include Everton in this if they get a 12-point deduction, which is looking likely?
You know what? Even if they did, there's a chance Everton could get out of it still because these teams are so weak. Because, I mean, if I'm Everton at the moment, I'm thinking if we are going to get hit with a 12-point ban, this might be the season to get it done with because
the other teams are so bad.
The other teams aren't going to win many games where they're playing. I mean, Burnley are open. They open up, and they haven't got the quality. Sheffield are just so far off it. And Luton
out of the three of them, who do you think is most likely to stay up then? Out of Luton, Sheffield, and
I mean, it depends because I think Sheffield are on the verge of sacking Paul Heckingbottom, and if Wilder has been touted, if he can get a tune out of them, but it's a big ask because I don't think they have the quality. Luton again don't have the quality. Burnley look the best out of the three, but I mean they can't win games because they play this crazy style of football.
To be honest, I think they're all gone.
Exactly. So I mean, if Everton do get banned Everton have proved they've went to Brentford and won, they've went to West Ham and won.
They play well away to Liverpool.
They can get results. So whether that comes in or not, but I think if they get 12-point deduction, that will have them -2. So they'd only need 2 wins they get out of the bottom three.
Yeah.
Based on that. So, I mean, I think if you're Everton, you're kind of hoping that if you're going to get banned, it's this season because they might be able to. I think they'll be able to survive.
Because if they put it off to the start of next season, I think they could be in big trouble then.
Because I don't think they'll get this fortunate. I mean, are these the three weakest teams we've ever had come up? Do you think?
In my lifetime, they are. I know. Yeah.
I mean, you very said, but do you see them three being the three going back down?
I mean, if I was a betting man, I would put my house on that them three are going down. But
how early do you think it'll be done? Because we're already seeing a gap open up. Bournemouth are kind of the only other team near them. Everybody else is 4 or 5 points clear already.
Bournemouth needed that one at the weekend.
So I mean, do you see a situation come Christmas where these teams are 7 or 8 points adrift and there's no way back?
I think That's probably a possible. I think Sheffield are going already, no matter who brings them in, because they're ravaged with injuries at the minute, and they don't look like they have a goal in them. They've already took a couple of hammerings this season, so they ship a lot of goals. Luton, as you say, don't have the quality, and I agree with you. Burnley do look like the best placed out of them, but they just play a mad style of football, which leaves them open, and they're just conceding goals for fun. So as I said there, if I was a betting man, I would say all three of them are heading back down to the championship.
James has clarified his comments here. I think we must read it wrong. Because I've read it back now. I can't know what he means, but he says the more times Liverpool, Arsenal, and Spurs wanted to put more pressure, Man City to beat these teams and the other teams. Fair point, James.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there's any team can cope with pressure, it's Man City. I mean, they are the masters at it. Let's look ahead to the fixtures this week. I mean, League Cup 4th round. It's not really a glamour week. There's no Premier League. There's no Champions League, but League Cup. Some of the bigger teams have already gone out. As we said, City are out. Spurs are out. Man United or Newcastle will go out. And that might leave it open for Arsenal and Liverpool to attack. I mean, how do you see United Newcastle going? I mean, all the pressure's on United, really. I mean, Newcastle probably have other priorities as well, but I think Newcastle are more likely. United are at home, but I think Newcastle will go strong because we've seen last season they are determined to try and win a trophy to end their trophy drought. So, how strong do you expect United to go? Do you think Ten Hag has no other choice but to go strong to try and get a result?
I mean, coming off that awful performance yesterday, I would say he has to go as strong as possible. Maybe he'll not play like Rashford, or he'll play Garnacho, or Mount will get a start, but he'll play a lot of big hitters, I think.
I'm going to call you out the fixtures. I want you to give me your predictions to see who's going to be in the quarterfinal. So there's actually 2 games on tomorrow night. None of them are on TV. Exeter against Middlesbrough. How do you see that going?
I'm just Middlesbrough, I would say. I haven't really watched.
Were playing there. They get 6 wins in a row, but they did lose at the weekend to Stoke at home.
As the Michael Carrick managing then?
Michael Carrick. Mansfield, Port Vale. I mean, we wouldn't know much about them, so I think whoever gets through that will not be really seen as a threat. Then we've got West Ham against Arsenal. That's 7:30 live on Sky on Wednesday night. How do you see that going?
Arsenal won.
Arsenal.
The Declan Rice derby.
Martin saying 2 easy trophies for Liverpool this year: League Cup and Europa.
Well, maybe.
Bournemouth, Liverpool. I mean, you would expect both teams to rotate. Bournemouth are probably going to be the least worried about this because they're going to be trying to stay in the Premier League, so they're probably thinking that it's probably better to get out of this because I mean, I don't see them winning it. So I mean, do you expect Liverpool to come through this quite comfortably?
I expect us to ring a few changes, but I do expect us to win quite comfortably. Yeah.
Can Chelsea beat Blackburn at home?
I mean, they have to. Even as bad as Chelsea are, I do expect them to beat Blackburn.
Everton take on Burnley. How do you see that one go? Everton being at home.
I'm going to go in Everton one because I just think they have more quality than Burnley.
Ipswich against Fulham. Now, this is going to be tight because Ipswich are flying in the championship. Fulham have been struggling.
I'm going to go win Ipswich 1.
Ipswich at home, they won. And then finally, Man United against Newcastle.
I'm going to go Newcastle.
So you think Newcastle, Ipswich, Everton, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, Middlesbrough, and then Mansfield or Port Vale, everyone's that. So, I mean, who would you assess as the favourites then? You know, out of that then, you'd have Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool and Newcastle on it. So it wouldn't be a nailed on, but I mean, would you be confident Liverpool's chances are going to lift that?
I like the big teams don't really take the League Cup that serious, so we're obviously going to rotate on it. But it's all the luck of the draw too. Like if we were to go and get say Mansfield or Port Vale in the next round, like that's us through to the semi-finals. So I would, if I was, I would, as the last comment was there, I wouldn't mind a cup double of Europa and League Cup this season.
How serious do you think Klopp will go tomorrow? Do you think he'll go strong, or do you think he'll very much rotate? And then if they get to the semi-final stage, he might take it a bit more seriously.
I mean, I think he'll rotate, like, but I think we have a strong squad anyway. No matter who we put out, we should be beating Bournemouth.
Let's look ahead to the weekend. Some big games coming up at the weekend, though. I mean, obviously, I'm going to Spurs Chelsea next Monday night. So really looking forward to that. But I
I
mean,
hope I
it
don't.
all
I hope
starts
I don't
off.
see. I hope I don't see anything about you on the news fighting with a Chelsea fan.
It all starts off with Fulham United at 12:30 on Saturday. I mean, how you said I really fancy United they won that day.
I wouldn't say I fancied them they won, but I think they will. I think it'll be. I'm going to say it'll be 1-1 going on the second half, and United will nick it in the last minute or so.
Brentford against West Ham. West Ham's lost their last 3 games, so they're on a bit of a bad run. They also lost in Europe, so I've seen West Ham fans are starting to bang the Moyes out drum again. But every time that happens, he seems to pull out a result. So, I mean, they need to start getting results again because I think Moyes isn't a fan favourite. I know he won that trophy, but they aren't happy with the style of football. So, Brentford obviously turned the corner as well. So, I mean, be a tough game, be a tight game. How do you see it going?
I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. Burnley, Crystal Palace. Huge game for Burnley at home. They gotta win that. Surely they have to. Well, I'm not saying they will win it, but for themselves, they need to try them. They need to get a one there.
And Palace haven't been pulling up any trees either.
Dreadful. They're a hard watch, Palace.
I'm gonna go 0-0.
0-0.
Yeah.
I think Burnley will win that game, and if they don't win that, I think they're gone. They're not going to give me an easier game. Palace are dreadful, absolutely dreadful.
Do you think Company could be in trouble, or do you think they'll stick with him?
No, they'll stick with him because I think they're very much planning a project there. Even if they go back down, they'll come back down more. They'll get their parachute payments, so they'll have more money. They try and I think it's a project at Burnley. So they'll try and go down and come back up again.
If you look at Leicester this season, they came down and they're nailed on to come back up.
They're flying. Everton against Brighton. Everton have got most of their points away from home. Brighton seem to be conceding a lot of goals.
I don't want to go for a third draw in a row, so I'm actually going to go for an Everton one.
Everton, they won at home. Man City against Bournemouth. I mean, I think that game, whatever Man City wanted to be.
Bournemouth, they won 5. No, Man City, they won very easily.
Sheffield United against Wolves. It's the last 3 o'clock game. Wolves playing well under Gary O'Neill, have to say. They've probably been the surprise package down that end of the table. I think they've been very, very good.
And a lot of people, including myself, tipped them to be down fighting relegation. And they've proved that they're a tough nut to crack with.
Is Gary O'Neill starting to prove himself as a decent Premier League manager, do you think?
I thought he was anyway, because I thought Bournemouth treated him horribly, to be honest.
Do you think Bournemouth will go back and change their mind if they could?
At this point, because your man who they have now, Areola, is he called? He's not pulling up any trees. I know they won at the weekend against who was it they were playing? Burnley, was it?
I think the most entertaining thing with that game was that VAR check. It wasn't a great game. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I think, as you say, I think Gary O'Neill has sort of proved these doubters wrong.
5:30, huge game. Newcastle Arsenal.
I've already
very tough game to call that because Newcastle are strong at home. Maybe haven't been as good as they were last year this season. Maybe because of the Champions League, they've had a few injuries. Toney's got banned now as well. So, but I mean, at home under the lights, you'd expect Newcastle to turn up. So it's going to be a very difficult game for Arsenal, isn't it?
Yep, I think I already said draw earlier, so I'm going to stick with that prediction.
Moving on to Sunday, I've seen better Super Sundays, but Nottingham Forest take on Villa at 2 o'clock. Forest are a decent home team. Villa seem to be flying at home, but away from home, not as good, even though they got some results. But I mean, at the minute, Villa are a tough nut to crack, aren't they?
Yeah, I would expect Villa to win that easily as well.
And then Luton against Liverpool.
Probably
always reminds me of the Xabi Alonso goal when they played in the FA Cup.
I mean that.
But Liverpool again at the minute, have to say, absolutely flying. Winning games comfortably as well. Beating Forest 3-0 the weekend.
What I like about us this season too is once we get a couple of goals up, we're not sort of chasing for the third or fourth. We're sort of just
managing the games well.
We're sort of just seeing games out and saying we don't need to score more goals. We've won the game.
Luton, I have to say, Luton, they've made they've made a fight that every game they've been on there enough. No, I think they lost the first game 4-1 to Brighton, but all or not, they've been trying to give teams games. Even they were 3-0 down, they've all got a goal back. They've been fighting on.
I thought they were actually pretty decent against Spurs.
Yeah, well, they struggled in the first 20 minutes or so, but Spurs didn't take their chances and it became quite tough. Obviously went down to 10 men, but I mean, every game at home has been tight. The games they've lost have been by 1 goal, and they drew with Wolves there. I mean, do you expect Liverpool to be the first team to maybe go there and put a few past them, or do you think it'll be very much a slog and Liverpool have to dig deep to win?
I honestly think with the way we're playing at the minute, I think we'll put a few past them. I'm gonna go 4-0.
4-0 Liverpool, big result. And then obviously the Monday Night Football, Spurs take on Chelsea. Will Spurs return to the top of the table?
I think they will. I'm gonna go 3-1 Spurs.
Closing thoughts on. I mean, we're 10 games under the Premier League season. I mean, I know it was tough seasons for Spurs and Liverpool fans last year, but I mean, taking that aside, both of them have improved and are up there at the minute. But do you think the standard of football has been a lot better now? It's back to a traditional season in terms of, we've recovered from COVID and the World Cup year last year. It's the first kind of proper season for a few years. I mean, do you think it's better for it?
Oh, 100%. The only thing that annoys me is there's like 3 international breaks with them. Like, why do they need 3? That doesn't make sense to me. But the standard of football has been great. As you say, there was a World Cup break this time last year that sort of broke it up. Then we had COVID the last few years. But I think this, and especially now with 4 or 5 teams up there challenging for the top of the table, I think it's making a better watch. It's actually making games more enjoyable because even as a neutral, like I'm going on the games hoping Spurs drop points. You're going on the games hoping Arsenal and Liverpool and all them drop points. So it's a very fun season to watch so far.
Well, I wouldn't say that at the moment. I think at the moment you just need to focus on yourself. I think when you get maybe after Christmas you start looking at others, but
yep.
I think it's too early to start watching Liverpool games and Arsenal games and Man City games and hoping they drop points.
When Man City drop points, it's always going to raise a few eyebrows.
That's it. I mean, unfortunately, as you say, we've got one more international break to go before the sort of run-on. I know there's one in March. March is quite a bit off, but I mean,
time to watch Ireland lose in Ireland.
Well, we've got our one more round Ireland under Stephen Kenny, I think. But I mean, we've got 2 more weeks to that break. I mean, it's funny because the breaks seem to drag, and then all of a sudden, it only seemed like yesterday we were talking about everybody having 4 games, 4 Premier League games, and we're halfway through them already. So I mean, we've got do you expect now after the international break, this last one, where we're flat out to March, really, bar the January international or the January winter break, we're kind of flat out to then. So I mean, do you expect then the league to start really hotting up come now under the Christmas period?
This year Christmas period, it's my favorite part of the season because it's just football after football after football, and you see teams dropping points and the table starts to widen a bit. I think our December fixtures, if I remember right, are tough. Like we have United.
What game are you looking forward to the most? You've got United on there. You've got. I think you've got Arsenal on there 2 days before Christmas as well.
We have United and then we have Arsenal, but I'm always looking forward to United games, and this is the thing. Like I've never been more confident going on the United games than I have been these past few years.
Will Ten Hag be the manager when you play them?
Fingers crossed.
What does your gut tell you?
About the result or about him being manager?
Will Ten Hag be the manager on December 17th?
I think he will. I actually think if he is manager and we give him an hour thinking, that could be a bye-bye.
I think was Mourinho sacked around the same time. It was around that time, wasn't
he? I think we beat them 3-1, then he was sacked like the day after.
It was around that time too, I remember. A couple of years ago now. But Owen, it's been a pleasure as always. We've done an extended show tonight because obviously there's no Monday Night Football. So I hope to everyone that's watched, we've provided some entertainment for you on this Monday evening. As I say at the top of the show, whatever you're doing over the Halloween period, enjoy yourself, stay safe. And the 12th Man podcast will be back on either Thursday or Friday evening. They look ahead to them games more in depth coming up at the weekend. And obviously we talked Spurs Chelsea will be the main feature, that being the biggest game of the weekend. Owen, final thoughts as we close the show tonight?
I just echo what you say. Everyone have a good Halloween. Stay safe, and
Hopefully,
hopefully
Luis
we
Diaz is Flores rescued.
Hi, no, it's a mad situation, isn't it? But and I just hope that we have another good weekend of football heading.
Top man, Owen, pleasure as always. Thanks to everyone who listened and interacted with us tonight. And then if you're new around here, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. Owen, thanks very much again. I'll see you soon.
No bother.